Hey everyone, Charlene Ortiz here. Today we are finally going to do our video on nutrition. And with all the clients that I've worked with in my 20-year career as a trainer, nutrition has always been the biggest hurdle for people to overcome. Because when you think about it, when you're trying to incorporate exercise and healthy eating into your lifestyle, it's very easy when you're trying to get regular exercise into your day, or it's easier. I wouldn't say very easy. It's easier because whatever time you have allotted for whatever activity you're going to do, whether it's walking or a jog or take a class at the gym or do your weight routine, whatever it is, you'll engage in that activity for a half hour, maybe an hour, and then it's done. You don't have to think about it for the rest of the day. Well, when it comes to nutrition, unfortunately, you have to think about your nutrition every waking moment of the day. And that can be very overwhelming, and it can make it very difficult for people to stay dedicated to a healthy nutrition plan and maintain really good eating habits. Another reason why maintaining good nutrition or learning good nutrition and changing your habits is because a lot of it has to do with our subconscious programming. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, one thing that my mom always stressed was for me to finish what I had on my plate when I was a young child. As I started to develop the symptoms of pancreatitis, and we found out, that I had a pancreatic tumor, she kind of backed off a little bit on that because obviously eating food caused me pain. And so, but for most of us, we could probably say that our parents did encourage us to eat everything on our plate and would tell us that, there's kids in China that are starving, even though that directly has nothing to do with you. But that was the message that they encoded into our brain since we were very young. And it's not their fault. I mean, they certainly didn't understand what they were doing, because it's in our primal nature that whenever there is food available, that we should consume it just because there is a famine or a drought. And there's a lot of different ways that our body responds to food and the way that our appetite works that goes all the way back to our primal days, which is true of many things. So like in my video on how exercise helps you overcome addiction, I talk a lot about our primal days and how our neurotransmitters work to benefit us and help us to survive. And so it's very, very difficult to break a lot of these subconscious habits, especially if you were not raised on a healthy diet, if you were raised on a lot of processed food, takeout foods, foods that were very easy and quick to prepare, just threw in the microwave, frozen foods, whatever. It's incredibly hard to retrain your body and reteach yourself how to instead eat foods that are fresh, eat foods that are organic and that are freshly grown, maybe from your local farmer or from your grocery store, finding the organic food. And also those foods are more expensive. So if you're in a very difficult financial position, and you have children to feed, or whatever your situation might be, in many situations the last thing you might be thinking is buying organic. You're just thinking, well, God, I got $50 to buy food for the rest of the week. What's the cheapest thing that I can get that's going to fill my kids up and fill me up and give us energy? And so I completely understand a lot of this thought process, because I even know for myself personally, there have been times when we literally had $12 to get through the week. And so when you have $12 to get through the week, it's, top ramen and potatoes all the way, just anything. And so I completely understand being in that predicament, and you want to change your lifestyle, you want to eat healthy, but again, it's really difficult to make some of these changes. At least it can seem difficult, but really it is not difficult. And that is one thing I really want to get in depth as I continue to progress in my videos on nutrition, is how you can make it easier for you and how it can actually be affordable for you to eat healthier. And it doesn't have to be as scary and devastating as you might think, because a lot of people think eating healthy will ruin their life and they'll never be able to enjoy food ever again. And that is absolutely simply not true. But before we start making changes, we have to change our thought process and how our subconscious is already programmed to think about food. And so when I'm working with my clients, there are 3 basic steps that I teach them to help them start changing their nutrition habits and be able to maintain good, healthy habits for the rest of their life. The first one that I'm going to focus on this week is going to be awareness. So when I say awareness, I mean being aware, consciously aware of when you're eating. Are you actually hungry? Or are you just eating because food is available, or you're bored, or you're upset, you got in a fight with your husband or your boss, and you're eating because it feels good, it makes you happy? Why are you eating? So the why are you eating is more important initially than how you are eating, because if we don't deal with the why you're eating a certain way, it's going to be difficult to change how you eat. So again, everything always starts with our mind. It really does. It starts with beginning to change our thought process and how we see things. So what I always encourage my clients to do is write a food log. And many of you may cringe when you see that. You know, like, oh God, I don't want to, take a notebook around and have to write down everything I eat. And I do recommend that my clients do that for a week. But the reality is, if you really want to see change in your life, there are going to be some things you'll have to do that, might not be the funnest thing or might not be the most comfortable. And really the best way for you to kind of see what your nutrition habits are like and be able to analyze it is to have it there right in front of you in just, black and white pen and paper. Actually, they also have apps. A very popular one is called MyFitnessPal, where you can record your food on the app and take pictures of you can scan the barcode and it will give you all the nutrition facts, what have you. But so if that works for you, that's great. Some people just like good old pen and paper. It's more simple for some. There are 4 things that I want you to record on your food log. The first thing is obviously what you ate. The second thing is how much of it did you eat. So if you had some cereal, did you have 3 bowls of cereal? Was it a large bowl, a small bowl? You don't have to measure. I mean, you don't have to go into any of that. You can just estimate, guesstimate. And then the third is what was on what you ate. And so say, for example, you had some cereal, and you put some fruit or you put some sugar on it. Or you had a sandwich, and on that sandwich you added 3 slices of cheese, mayonnaise, and some mustard, and maybe some kind of special sauce, that the restaurant provides or whatever. And what's important about analyzing or being aware of what is on your food is a lot of times we put so many additives onto something that actually might have been somewhat healthy, but because we put all these additives on it, it now has become incredibly unhealthy and full of fat and empty calories that your body can't really use except to just store it as fat. And so, and say for example, once you're aware of all the condiments and the additives you're putting on your sandwich, you might realize that, well, you know what? I might be able to eat a sandwich with just 1 thin slice of cheese and just a very mild spread of mayonnaise, and that might be just as delicious. Perhaps I don't need all these additives and I can still enjoy the food and yet significantly reduce the calories that are in the food. And so that's why that's very important. The next one is what time did you eat? And so that way you can see what your patterns are throughout the day. How long you go throughout the day without food, or how short the time period is that you go without food. For me personally, I prefer a ketogenic diet where you're using ketone bodies as energy for fuel, but I'm going to go into depth about that in another video. So, but the time that you ate is also important too, because that will also help you to kind of tap into your subconscious as well. And so say, for example, you ate your breakfast at 7 in the morning, and then you got to work at 8:30 and somebody had brought donuts and you ate a donut or 2, and you weren't even really hungry. And when you record it, 8:30 had 2 donuts, and then you see 7 o'clock, I had my breakfast where I had some oatmeal, a piece of toast, and egg, whatever. You see, wow, it's only been an hour and a half since I ate, and that was a pretty good breakfast, and I just ate 2 donuts. Like, did I really need to eat that much in that short period of time? And so, and also, a lot of times, if we've been eating at a certain schedule for much of our life, we are kind of pre-programmed to eat at that time, even if we might not be hungry. And so, again, say you have your dinner, and then you go to meet some friends, to go out and do something, and say you go to a bar or restaurant, and you order an appetizer, and you just had dinner like an hour ago. But you had your dinner just because you always have dinner at that time, knowing you were going to go out with your friends, knowing there was going to be food available there. And so, again, it just helps you to see, am I eating just because I think it's time to eat, or because there's food there, or because I'm upset? And with that one, actually, for those of us who are emotional eaters, which is actually the majority of people that are addicted to food, another thing that I'd like you to add to a food log, if you are an emotional eater and you know you're an emotional eater, is when you go on a binge, to write down what happened right before you did that. So say you got into a fight with your husband, and then you ate a half carton of ice cream. And I also like you to write down how you felt at that time. I felt angry, I felt hurt, I felt betrayed, whatever, I felt unloved. And so you can associate what emotions are involved when you're going on these unhealthy eating binges, and using that to kind of help you to mask the pain of the emotions that you're feeling. And again, it could be anything. It could be something that happened at work. It could be that your car broke down. There's so many different stresses that we deal with every day, and going to food is such a quick, easy fix. And then after we eat it, we feel guilty. We know we just did something self-destructive, and then we might eat some more and say, well, I already screwed up, so forget it. I'm just gonna finish the carton of ice cream, which then begins a vicious cycle. And if for any of you that struggle with that, I don't have to explain. You already know what that's like. And so, again, so the 5th thing you might want to add onto your food log is, if you are an emotional eater, what you ate and what happened. And then again, at that point, when you see the different things that trigger you to go to food, then we can start talking about better, healthier, and more productive ways to deal with that stress, as opposed to going to food instead. And I'm going to talk about that in future videos, as I, kind of slowly ease you guys into changing your habits, and just providing information just one step at a time, so you're not too overwhelmed. The next thing I'll talk about, I want you guys, write your food log, and you're kind of getting used to understanding your habits, and you're becoming more aware, would be to start making the small, consistent changes and the preparation. And again, I'll go more into depth about these 2 steps next week, but today I just wanted to focus on the awareness. So that is your homework for the week, is to begin a food log and write down all these 4 different aspects of the food log, or you can add number 5, emotional eating times, and so you can see what your patterns are there. Now, real briefly, I wanted to discuss something that might be affecting many of you out there that are feeling like no matter what you do, you can't lose weight. And this is something that is a fairly new discovery, and it's called leptin resistance. Now, what leptin is, it's a hormone produced by your fat cells that sends a message to the brain when you're full and to stop eating. And so the way that the hormone works, and again, this all goes back to our primal days, when we were in survival mode pretty much all the time. So the less fat you have, the more leptin your fat cells are going to release. Because when we lived in a time when there was famine and drought, if we hadn't eaten for a while and hadn't gone out to, hunt for food or what have you, you'll start to feel hungry as your fat levels deplete, and your body will use your fat cells will release a leptin hormone to your brain, saying, okay, the fat levels are getting a little too low for our comfort, so we need to go out there and we need to get something to eat. So you go out there, you hunt. Luckily, hopefully you'll find something, kill it, bring it home, the family eats, and everybody's happy. Well, as you start to develop more fat cells, then your fat cells will send the leptin hormone back to the brain and say, okay, that's enough, we're good. So let's calm down. We're not as hungry anymore. And the brain will say, okay, you're not hungry. And so then they would decrease the amount of food that they're eating so they don't get too fat, because if you're too fat, then you can't go out there and catch, whatever animal, or go out there and hunt and gather fruits and berries. And so that's why this was an excellent design, back in our primal days. Well, unfortunately, like many other things, what's happened over the decades or over the centuries or millennia is the way that we eat and our need to go out and hunt has changed. Food is now readily available to us at a supermarket that most of us live within just a few miles. Or we can even order food. We can order a pizza, we can order Chinese food, even Yelp, or is it Yelp, or what's the name of that company? Uber, that you can now order food from any restaurant and they'll bring it to you. So we don't even have to go out to the grocery anymore to get this food. And in my opinion, this is actually starting to become a disaster for us, because it's making us have to work less and less in order to get our food, where we don't even have to get up and go to the grocery anymore. And a lot of grocery stores will actually even deliver it for you. And so we're just finding more and more ways to make us lazier for the sake of convenience. And so what's happened, because we no longer have to go out and hunt and gather, and we have all this food available to us, is, again, back to my first point, awareness in your subconscious mind. We are eating beyond when we're full. We're eating just because it's there and it tastes good, because it's loaded with all these processed refined sugars and high fructose corn syrup and all this stuff that's incredibly addictive. And so we load ourselves up with that. And so our body now is getting all this excess levels of leptin that's way out of whack. It's too much. And so when the leptin tries to communicate to the brain shuts it off because it's too much. And so that's how the body regulates itself. Again, like my other video about addiction. When there's certain amounts of neurotransmitters in the blood, there's too much, the receptors pull back to regulate. And that's what your body is always trying to regulate you, to keep you in a state of homeostasis. So what happens is you can develop a condition called leptin resistance. And so now every time you eat, you could eat a large meal and 15 minutes later you're hungry again. Because, again, the brain is not responding to the leptin anymore, because it's trying to regulate itself, so it's not responding. And so now, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you just cannot lose weight. And if you're somebody that is experiencing that right now, it is extremely frustrating, incredibly discouraging. It makes you just want to give up, and you feel like, man, I guess I'm just, imprisoned to a life sentence of being fat and unhealthy and feeling like crap. And that could be because you have developed leptin resistance. Unfortunately, the medical community is really not well educated, if at all, about leptin resistance. Again, it is a fairly new discovery. They haven't known about it for that long. But there is a test that you can request that your doctor do to check your leptin levels, and it's called a leptin serum test. Now, if you ask your doctor, most doctors may not know what that is. So I have provided a video in the description, a link to a video in the description of this video, to a doctor's YouTube channel. Oh, I can't remember the guy's name. Oh God. Anyway, I can't remember his name, but you'll find out when you go to his channel. And I specifically wanted to try to remember his name, but anyway, that's not too important. So click on that link and it'll bring you to this video. And he is a osteopathic doctor. And his specialty is hormone regulation and the endocrine system. And he will go in depth about what leptin resistance is, what causes it, and he will also tell you how you can go about getting the appropriate test from your doctor. And when you do get blood panels done, to ask your doctor to see the blood panels for a copy of it and what to look for if you're in your thyroid hormone levels, what to look for to see if you are leptin resistant. And the sad thing is that your doctor won't even know that. But if you watch this video, this doctor will tell you exactly what to look for, so you can tell your doctor, hey, you know, this isn't right, and this is what I believe is going on. And the reality is, for many of us that suffer from any type of chronic condition, or obesity, or what have you, we have to be very proactive if we really want to get the appropriate tests and treatment and care that we need. And so again, that's one reason why I'm doing this channel, just so I can tell you guys, you know, these are the things that you can do to be proactive in order to get the care, and the treatment and the response that you should be getting from your doctor. So again, in that video, he really goes into great detail on how you can get this test done. And so leptin resistance is also a reason why often if you feel like you're not losing weight, no matter how hard you try, you go to get tested to see if maybe you have a thyroid condition. And the test comes back negative. Your thyroid is completely normal. Well, the reason why is because leptin resistance is actually a precursor to hypothyroidism. And so you might be going to the doctor, getting your thyroid tested, and they're saying your thyroid is fine, but it is not. Because the leptin resistance, I mean, it is affecting the thyroid, but hasn't affected the thyroid so drastically yet to show up on a blood panel. So even if your test comes back negative, you may still be experiencing hypothyroidism, but it's just not showing yet because you're experiencing leptin resistance. And so again, this is something really important that I wanted to discuss for those of you that are having a hard time losing weight and you feel like it's impossible. This could be what's going on. And again, this is groundbreaking information that, you know, could really change your life. And so definitely check out that video, and you'll learn a lot from that doctor, and it'll give you the guidance that you need on how to go about, you know, finding out if you do have it, and then, you know, where to go from there. The unfortunate thing is that a lot of the treatment that we need in order for us to actually heal ourselves you will not find it in the traditional medical community. It's just not there. The only thing that you will find is lots of medication. And unfortunately, doctors really aren't educated on how to treat the cause of the condition in many situations, especially with chronic conditions. They really don't know how to treat it, so they just treat the symptoms, which the medication that we're given does even more damage, making the symptoms even worse or causing side effects, again, which begins another vicious cycle. And going the naturopathic route, for many of us, can be expensive because insurance doesn't cover it. If you want to see a chiropractor, and a naturopathic doctor, an herbalist, an acupuncturist, you know, what have you, all the different natural doctors that are out there that can actually help you deal with the cause, we simply just can't afford it. And that's the position I'm in right now. You know, I'd love to be seeing a chiropractor regularly and an acupuncturist, but I just don't have the funds right now. And I believe that that's going to change. I'm sure that that's going to change. So you do what you can. And you control the things that you can control. And one of those things is exercise, how much you move, how active you are, and the things that you eat, and the things that you put in your mouth. So those are two things that we can control. And another thing that we can control is our thought process and how we think. Because our thought process really is directly related to our health and how we feel physically. Next week, I'm going to be doing a very important video on a science called Epigenetics, which is the science of how our thought process affects our body. And understanding this science and how it works will change your life. I mean, if you really are engaged, in learning about epigenetics, and you really try to practice a lot of the techniques to help you to change your process and your subconscious, it will literally change your life, and it can cure diseases that you've been dealing with, maybe even your whole life. And so I will be doing a video on that next week, and I'm going to go into depth about the science of epigenetics, and you will just be blown away at how amazing your body is and how powerful our thoughts really are. So, all right, guys, later this week, in the next day or two, I will be uploading my circuit training video that's going to give you a good full body workout. And if you haven't been practicing the exercises I've shown you since the beginning, I really, really suggest that you do, because this is going to be harder. It's going to be more intense than what we've done in the past. And the goal is to slowly progress you to go on to more difficult, harder exercises, so that you can, get stronger and continue to progress. So I'll definitely have that one up, hopefully in the next couple days. So, okay, thank you so much for your time and attention. As always, I really appreciate it. So remember to take care of yourself, protect yourself physically and emotionally, and don't forget, your health is your most valuable asset. Invest in it. Bye-bye.